Hello everybody, Corey here. I'm just going to do a review of the distribution estimate. Of course, we know this month was a little special because I did miss some of the data while I was in New York. And unfortunately, I didn't have some of that. So, on the short call premiums, I stated, some of those would probably be lower than the actuals due to not having that data, or even some of them trying to recreate that data based off of the holdings if I had them. So we know this month was going to be a little different. So May and April, those were jacked up because somehow I copied over one and I don't know which one the data belongs to. I believe the April data was actually correct here because I remember when we first started, the distribution was closer to the last distribution and the IV. So we were using a few different things, and then those were closer, so we went towards that. And then in May, if I recall correctly, because like I said, somehow I overwrote the entire spreadsheet with this data, this month's data, so basically both tabs are the same. But if I recall correctly, in May, the distributions were closer to the short call premium received. So that's when we added that back into the mix, and that's why we have those three. And I didn't explain that in the estimate video before, and I apologize. We have a lot of new people, so you know, if you hadn't been watching these, you wouldn't have known that, and I forgot to explain it. But then here in June, just it's just a quick recap. We can see in June, here for the short call premium received, most of the estimates were closer to that short call premium than they were the IV estimates or the last distribution there. So and then to also mention here, so I do, the range, and then if the distribution's falling within that range. So last month we did really great, and we were within that range, but we were above. It looks like 5 of them, so we were in the range with 15 and above 5. So it looked pretty decent. This month doesn't look as great, and I don't know if it's due to me being out in New York and not being able to get the data. I'm not totally sure, and I know I didn't even do the day before. Usually I use the day before data, but that was the night that I had found out I had shingles, and I was tired and went to bed, and didn't do any videos. So I don't actually have that last video to compare, so we're a little day behind here, but that's okay. The data wouldn't have changed too much, but just looking at these first 3 columns. So so if you're new to this, we'll just go over this a little bit. But that first column is the last distribution. So I take this from that other spreadsheet just so we can see it all together here. And so that's the last distribution. And then the next column is the estimate based on the IV. And then the next column is, the estimate based on the short call premium received. And then we have the average here. So this is the same thing that was on the other spreadsheet. Like I said, we take those 3 numbers. That gives us the average. That also gives us our range. So we can see that in column L and M, the range between those. And then just to keep going over, if we're looking at AIYY, the next column you can see, does it fall, within that range? Is it above it or is it below it? And as you can see here, we don't have as many in the range. Well, we do have 11. Last month we had 15 of the 20. So we had 15 last month in. This month we only have 11. And then above, I actually have 2 here. This is 3. I see 3. I don't know why I thought there was only 2. Oh, sorry. But I see 1, 2, 3. And so below, let's just make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that is correct. 2023. Okay. And then If we take away 3, that's 23. Okay, so that's correct. So yeah, so we had 15 in last month, 11 this month, and 5 above last month, and then we have 3 above this month. Now last month we didn't have any below, and now we have 9 below. So we have more than half of our distributions outside of our range. Now again, could have been my fault due to not capturing all of the data, but if we look here, like at AIYY, though, we show that they received 60 cents in short call premium, but they only paid out, 40 cents. And so this is the actual amount they paid out right here in column Q. So that one, but AIYY also hasn't done that great either. So, there's possible that they had paid out a distribution that they didn't actually have before, and, they're just holding some of that back. This is on the lower end of the distributions that they've paid over the history, and you can tell by the color code. So if you don't watch the video with the total returns and distributions, this is a color coded scale based on the previous distributions paid. So if it's green, it's either its all-time high or close to its all-time high, and if it's closer to the red, it's either close or at its all-time low here. So we can see most of these are paying on the lower end of the distributions, especially if you take out the ones here that are brand new, that are green, because obviously it's brand new, right? But just wanted to point that out with AIYY. Let's see if we haven't really looked at these too much. I'm not seeing, just glancing down here. Well, I do see, okay, so JPMO, it looks like I had that they brought in 42 cents, but only paid 22. So that's another one. Same thing here on Murney, which Murney's being killed. Man, I knew that was going to happen. I just knew it because I've been following Moderna for a while now. And it's going to come back down anytime it surges upward. So I'm lucky that I sold all of my Murney when it was still around 22 or so dollars, because I think it's around 15 now. But I was waiting until it dropped back down to buy back in. But yeah, so I have here that the short call premium was 88 cents. They're only paying 49, which makes sense because, yeah, it's lost quite a bit of money this month. But anyway, this is if you want to pause it and then just sort of look at all of these. As far as looking in the blue spot in the range, again, this is just sort of analyzing. And this month is probably one of the worst months. And again, it's I'm sure it's my fault for being out and everything. But we also have the next column. It's the range. It's just saying how big that range is, between the min and the max. And then the next column is just showing, like that first one, it says it's below. Well, it's only below by 2 cents, right? So the minimum was 42 and it paid 40, so it was below at 2 cents. Same thing with Apley. It was only below that one 2 cents. And then GDXY, it was above at 9 cents. And then we had JPMO, Murney, and MSFO. They were all below as well, 13, 15, and 4 cents. Nefli below at 9 cents. OARC was only below at 1 cent. So really, like even this one, Squee, is below 0 cents. It's because, there's some decimals there. So it's sort of within, but you know what I'm saying. I guess the worst ones that were outside the range was like Snowy, but of course it's never even paid a distribution. So all we had to go by is the IV and the short call premium that I had documented. Obviously it wasn't completely correct because they paid out 93 cents. But so it was 25 cents above that range. And then the other one was Tesla. I mean, I had it down at 80 cents, but they paid $1. So it was 21 cents above. But these all were, pretty much close to the range. But I will say that this is probably the worst month as far as, looking the data like this. Now, as far as what these were close to this month, they were mostly close to the IV. We did have some close to the short call premium. And, if I'd have captured all of the data accurately, we may have a different story. But what we have here right now, with what I had when I did the video, everything's closest to the IV. So I've rolled it up at the bottom with numbers. Of course, again, I'm sorry, I assume that you've seen these before, but here I've done the color code, right, of which one it's closest to. So just picked whichever one it was closest to. If it's green, it means it was within 5 cents, yellow within 10 cents, and red more than 10 cents. I try to be consistent with all the things that I do here in all these different spreadsheets, so you can pretty, much understand them if it's all the same, right? But we can see overall, looking at the last distribution, only 4 of them are like the closest. And even with that, only one of them was within 10 cents, and the other 3 were more than 10 cents off. But then when we look at the short call premium, I'm looking down here at these numbers. Short call premium, it had 6 closest. 1 of them was within 5 cents. 3 of them was within 10 cents. And 2 was more. Actually, I don't even see 2. I see 1 and 3 and 1. So this actually should have been 1. I don't know, unless it was said 2 before and I just didn't change it. And then if I count that up, that's 23. Okay, so there we go. So we have 5. So we had 1 within 5 cents, 3 within 10, and 1 more than 10 cents, which was the Tesla being 20 cents over. And then if we look at the IV, we had 14 of these closest to the IV. 14 out of 23, right? And 9 of them were green, which means 9 of them were within 5 cents. And, keep in mind the IV that I have on the spreadsheet. I mean, I've done it a couple of different ways, but I've just settled with the current IV. I've gone back and I've done the IV for each week to estimate how much they were trying to get and everything else. And honestly, it just wasn't that much different than the current IV, and it was a lot of work to do. So I just chose to use the current IV. But in this case, it worked out pretty well because 9 of them were within 5 cents of the distribution amount. 1 was within 10 cents. And then we did have 4 that were more than 10 cents off here. But again, we have the closest with the IV this month. And then if you just want to go over, I do all these other little things. If we look here, if we're just looking at the last distribution, this is actually showing you the cents and the percentage that estimate was off. So Phoebe here, that was the green one. So here, the other one is just picking whichever one is the closest. Over here, it's actually looking at every number regardless. So here in last distribution, only one of them was closest within 5 cents, and it was Phoebe. It was 1 cent off. It also has 4 that were within 10 cents, and then 16 that were more than 10 cents off. So again, you can see the IV here when you look at it. We actually had 10 in the green. I know over there it shows 9, but that's because if you look here, this was within 4 cents, and the short call premium is within 2 cents. So it, outweighed it. So it doesn't count that towards that one. So this is where I'm saying we're looking at every single number. So we did have 10 within 5 cents, 1 within, 10 within 5 cents, 1 within 10 cents, and then we have 12 that were more than 10 cents. And you can see each one of those here. So, we have, 12, 14, but we even have up to $1.28 here, right, for NVIDIA. So wide range there, but about half of them, were within the 5 cents. So that's pretty awesome. And then for the short call premium here, we can see 2 that were within 5 cents, 5 of them which were within 10 cents, and then we had more than 16 that were more than 10 cents off. And then just the other ones that we have to the side, just because we have the average, if we were looking at the average of the IV last distribution, the short call premium, do the same thing here just to look at the data, because we do provide the average on there, but honestly, most of the time looking at these, I wouldn't even, the average usually is not the closest, right? And then over on the right, I just have the average IV and last distribution, only because that's the way it works, like the first month or so. So I still just like to look at the data. So you can actually even look here. It had 6 that were within 5 cents, and then 3 within 10 cents, which was 9. But still, if you look at the average of the IV and distribution and the last distribution and the short call premium, it had 4 that was green, 7 that was yellow within 10 cents. So within 10 cents, it had 11 total, right? And the other one only had 9. So it just sort of validates that using those 3 numbers that I do, is the best. Because I'm not just guessing and pulling out numbers here, right? We do have this data, do calculations, and then, of course, when we look at the other data, we have everything there, right? So we know how much the stock has dropped or went up that period and everything else. We get to see all the data, so we can sort of look and say, okay, yeah, the numbers say this, but looking at the historical distributions and the last distribution, and if the stock was up or down, then we can sort of adjust our expectations, on those. But I don't just, if you've been watching me for a while, I don't just give you numbers out of the air. I'm going to give you some calculated number, and then I might say, yeah, but it's down, so it may not pay that much. Not sure if you watched the review of this, but anyway, I like to analyze stuff. I like to look at things, and yeah, so this is just what I do. But anyway, again, sorry I didn't have all the data for the short call premium, but it does look like that most of the data, or most of the distributions, was at least close to the estimate of the IV. But anyway, just thought I would do this follow-up video. I think I failed to do it before last month. A lot of stuff was going on. But anyway, hope y'all enjoyed some of this or part of this or something. You probably only did, though, if you're like an analytical person like me and spreadsheet and wonder how things came out. We just throw numbers out there, but how great were the numbers, right? Always like to follow up to make sure that we're on the right track with the numbers that we're looking at. But anyway, I'll let y'all go and have a great day. Bye.